In this session, we'll talk about how you can share CSS style among LWC component. So what it means and what I'm going to do it. So if you remember, let me explain it here. Like before, when you create one LWC and to add the CSS, what we did? Like if you want to use CSS file, we add a CSS file on this LWC. Okay. So if you open any of the like LWC component, you can see that. For example, let me show you one existing LWC. Wherever you want any CSS to be added, you can see CSS file we have. So think a scenario. Okay, your company have given a set of style rule. Okay, so like your marketing team or your design team have given set of style rule. Whenever you have used a paragraph, how it should look like. Whenever you use a button, how it should look like. The set of rule they have given. So now, whenever you develop a specific UI, nothing but one LWC you develop. So same rule should be applied. Or you want to develop another LWC, then whatever the style rule to your branding or your company decide, like for your one div how should look, your image what size or how should look, or your button how should look. So same rule set should apply in every page or every LWC what you develop. If I develop three LWC, and in every LWC now you are adding the CSS.css file and keeping the same rule set, correct? So instead of that, what now we are saying, you can share your CSS style among different LWC. What it mean? I mean, I am going to create one CSS file only, something like this. For example, you create one CSS file, just give the name as, for example, CSS library. Okay, now you create your LWC. This is my LWC1, this is my LWC2, this is my component 3. Like this, how many component you want, you create it. But instead of writing the same CSS code again and again in each component, we can reuse it. Okay, so same CSS file we can refer in every LWC. So how we can do it? Let's see it. So now, whenever you are going to use sharing the CSS style among different LWC, just remember to follow these steps. You create one LWC which is going to contain only the CSS file and its configuration file, the meta file. And whatever the rule set is there, you add it. Means first you create the CSS library, put your rule set, everything. Next, where you want to use your import CSS module. Let's see programmatically how am I going to create a small LWC component where I am going to use a CSS library. Okay, I'm going to my LWC now. I'm VBS Code to create one new Lightning Web component. So what you do here? Simply go to command palette. From here, just type the command create Lightning Web component. For example, create Lightning Web component. Let's give some name. For now, I'm going to give the name as CSS library. Okay, you can give any name. What name you want, you can give. Okay, so this is a component we created. So if you remember in my first step, I was saying we will create a LWC that is going to contain only CSS file, nothing else. Okay, now if you go to my component, let me see. This is my LWC. I have CSS library component and many more things we have. I do not need anything. I need only a CSS file. What I can do, I'm just going to copy this name because I want to keep the same name for my CSS file. In the component name, right click, add a new file, give the name as .css. This much thing only you need. Okay, so now the HTML file what we have, we do not need. Go and delete it. Okay, and JS file we have, you do not need. Go and delete it. Okay, we deleted these two files. Now we have a meta file. In meta file, you just give these two default thing, nothing to add. Okay, so remember this one. Okay, when you are adding a CSS file or CSS library, you keep the CSS library.css file and delete everything like your HTML, JavaScript file, whatever you have, delete it. Okay. So now on this CSS file, I'm going to write my code. Okay. What code you want? For example, I'm going to write a CSS for my H1 tag and paragraph tag and div tag. So whatever the CSS rule you have, you can write it. For example, I'm going to write a CSS tag for like whenever I'm using H1 in my component, I can use a color of like, for example, blue color. Okay. Or I want the font size to be larger, for example. Okay. And for example, okay, and I want font weight to be bolder, something like that. I kept some CSS rule, and whenever there is a paragraph p tag, I want color of the p tag. I want to set as, for example, blue violet. Any combination I'm picking up, and think I'm taking font size to be medium. Okay, and let's see. I want font family as this, for example. Okay, this is my CSS I have defined. Nothing else I'm going to do. On this CSS, what I do, I'm ready with my CSS file now. Let me deploy this one. You can do this, deploy this as well. So this is the library, CSS library I have used. You can write your multiple CSS what you want. Okay, all the rule you can put. Your branding, what you have, you can put here. Now I want to have a component where I am going to use this CSS. I'm going to create a new component where I'm going to use this CSS. Okay. To do that, I'm going to again command palette. You can go from here or you can use your key in Windows Control-Shift-P. Do the command palette and I'm going to create a new Lightning Web component. Okay. So when I'm doing a new Lightning Web component, what I'll do? I'm going to give a name. For example, I'm going to give a name as share CSS component, for example. Okay, just to see this example. So this is one of my component I'm creating right now. So what I do here, I'm going to this HTML. In this HTML, I'm going to create one lightning card, for example, lightning card, and let's see, I'm putting some title, CSS share CSS example, just to understand. And here I'm going, let's see, inside this I'm going to keep one H1 tag because I have mentioned two component or two CSS rules, one for H1 and one for P tag. Okay, let's in this P tag I'm going to write some context. So this is a paragraph, and in H1 I'm going to write a context, something like this is, for example, H1, to understand what styling getting added or not. So now on this, I want to use CSS. When you want to CSS, what I said, always you go and add a CSS file. So now let me copy this name so that I can add same CSS file here. Right click, new file, dot CSS. So now in this CSS, if I don't use my library, what I'll use? I should have copy everything and put here, correct? So if you have multiple component, want to use this CSS, in every component you have to put this code. If there is somebody change, okay, your company branding says now all H1 color instead of blue should be changed. Then you have to go to each component and change it. Instead of that, what we do, I am not going to write this. I am going to use the library what we have developed here. How you can use that? Simply go to your CSS file here. Okay, here I am going to import. What you are going to import? I am going to import my library. From where? Your namespace slash the name of the component what you have here. Okay, simply you can take it in C slash CSS library. Only this is the thing I'm going to do here. And if you have any individual CSS you want to use for this component, you can write still. Okay. But the moment you have this import statement, that means all the CSS properties or rule added on CSS library are imported to this component and can be used. So now if you see, we have two components, one my CSS library, one my main component where I'm going to use this CSS. So now I'm going to deploy this two component. So first I'm deploying CSS library here. You can see deploy this source to all. You can do from here. And you can see now CLI command is running to deploy the code. Now I'm going to deploy my HTML, deploy this source to org. Now you can see the CLI command running to deploy. Now let me open my org. If not open, you can directly open from command palette like open default org from here. Okay, when you do open default org, what will happen? Your org will open and then we will use this CSS component in the page to see how it happening. So to do that, what I'm doing, okay, one more thing you have to do before you use in the app builder, my component also should be configured. If I go to my meta file of my component, what we have, share CSS HTML, there I have to define my meta file. So I'm just going to use my meta file right now. I'm just copying from one of the meta files simply, the target. I'm going to expose it true and putting my target. Let me deploy this. So now I'll go to my page. For example, just for now, I'm going to put in the one of the account page to show it, account record page, just to see how this is happening or not. I'm going to edit this page. Now you can see share CSS component available here. I'm just going to drag it and put somewhere here, for example. Wherever you want, you can put it. I'm just going to put somewhere here. Okay, now if you see the page, automatically CSS got reflected. So same CSS library, you can use all the places or all the component wherever you want. Okay, so remember, whenever you want to share your component CSS as a library in the whole org, create a CSS library component and import in the template or import in the LWC where you want to use in the CSS file using my import statement and which library you want. What it will do, it will inherit all the CSS properties defined in the library to this component. Thank you. Stay tuned for the next session.